To raise 15 crore, for me, it took 76 investor pitches and some 15 months. There was corruption scam after corruption scam. Global investors had lost faith and trust in the Indian economy. FPIs were pulling money out. One warehouse in Bombay reaching 6,500 pin codes. If your COD RTOs are 30-40%, this business is not working. Magic unicorn benchmark fulfilling 2 million orders, getting to 5,000 orders a day. That India was never cool when I was. Now people are like, anything made in India is quality, it's power.
Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Podcast by Unicommerce. I'm Kapil Makhija, MD and CEO of Unicommerce. India's consumer digital economy is expected to hit $1 trillion by 2030. And that has been possible thanks to visionaries like Arjun, who's with us today. He's been on both sides of the table, being a brand owner and entrepreneur, as well as supporting and mentoring many D2C brands by investing in them. Welcome, Arjun, to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Kapil, for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation and excited to deep dive with you on all the insights of the consumer landscape.
Yeah, I'm also excited to learn a lot from you. You have built, you're a co-founder of Dr. Vaidya's and now V3 Ventures. You have built this, you converted this traditional legacy business, a 150-year-old legacy business of yours, into a new age D2C business and then eventually exited in 2019. While this is just a brief of your journey, would love to first understand how the journey has been of building the brand and exiting. And now as an investor, if you can walk us through your journey.
Yeah, that's pretty much my entire working life, but I'll try to summarize it. So look, I think it starts a little bit before that. In 2013, I moved back to India. I studied in the US, my undergrad. I'm not an MBA, I only did an undergrad. And I have a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Politics, not even a BBA or a BSc or any of that. So I moved back to India 2013 after graduating from Brown University. In the last 10 years, moved so much in India that sometimes we forget what the reality of our country was 10, 12 years ago. Right? In 2013, when I moved back to India, things weren't exciting or great. I knew that I wanted to be in India long term, and so I had no option but to come back to India. But in 2013, I came back to an India where exchange rate was at what seemed like its all-time worst. There was corruption scam after corruption scam. Global investors had lost faith and trust in the Indian economy. FPIs were pulling money out. And confidence was very low. I got a job at a private equity fund, a global private equity fund. And there was chatter in my first 6 months of my first job out of college to shut down the India office. Because the fund was losing faith in India, right? And I think that is the time I came back to India. But 2014 government change, Ministry of Ayush was created. And for me, this was relevant because I had a family interest and legacy in Ayurveda. But I think outside of that, there was a lot of exciting things happening in India. So it was the early part of the e-commerce revolution and the e-commerce wave, as you'll know. I remember in my first few months of work, my ex-boss asked me, and at that time we used to print out decks, right? Like not on WhatsApp and PDFs and stuff. So she put a deck on my table and she said, you think Indians will buy clothes and shoes and accessories online? And you can guess the company we were talking about was Myntra. And I was the youngest member of the team, so they said, you work on this because it seemed like you know e-commerce. And I was in the US, so I was used to buying on Amazon, etc., all of that. It has just started e-commerce in India. It was like Snapdeal, Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra had just started, Jabong had just started, Bluestone was doing some work, Zivame was there. There was a company called Yep.me, which we were looking at. So early days of e-commerce in India. And I was lucky to be a part of this journey, right? And what I realized very quickly is that this e-commerce thing is not a fad. It's here to stay. It's here to stay because retail accessibility at scale in a country that is now 1.4 billion, at that time we were 1.2 billion people, different topographies, different infrastructure. That time infra was not the way it is today. E-commerce really made sense because in a Anantnag, Muzaffarnagar, Imphal or Trichy, where eventually I was selling my products to as Dr. Vaidya's, there was not so much offline retail, not so many brands, but those customers who had the money, wanted to buy those products, had done the research, had no way to get those products. Right? And so I started believing in the e-commerce wave. The other thing that was happening in India around the 2014, 15, 16 period was that there was a newfound pride towards being Indian. And I'm very patriotic. I wear this band with the Indian flag on my hand. I've been wearing it for the last 13 years. But I had the good fortune of working in a fund that invested in Fab India. And through the experience and journey of Fab India, I started seeing that there were quintessentially Indian brands being created and Indian customers who, growing up around me, thought that Indian products were substandard, anything imported was good. I remember there were stores in my growing up days in the 90s where they only sold imported products because what was imported was considered good and Indian was substandard. Right. And so I came back and I started seeing that now there's a pride towards being Indian. So three macro trends that excited me in my first 3-4 years of being back in India was Ministry of Ayush was created, interest towards Ayurveda was created, e-commerce was not a fad, it was here to stay. And Indian brands were being respected by Indian consumers, which wasn't the case, right? So that was the macro. I worked 3 years in this private equity job. I worked at a fund called L Keratin, one of the largest consumer sector investors in the world, backed by LVMH Group. And I got to meet 100 to 120 of the best consumer entrepreneurs in our country, from cars, bikes, apparel, lifestyle, retail, FMCG products, jewelry, wines and spirits. And in all of these interactions, I got to expose myself to this consumption story in India. And then at some point I got bored of investing, right? Because I was investing my boss's investors' money. And I was as a 22, 23-year-old kid too far away from the action. Right? I had not built a business. I had not built anything myself. So I decided I wanted to move into the venture capital space or the early stage space. I interviewed at a very large, famous VC fund. I reached the last round of interview and I didn't make it. I didn't get the job. But they said that, hey, look, you can, like the people who almost make the job, we think are good enough to work in our portfolio. So they gave me 3 opportunities at that time. Very, very cool opportunities actually. To be the EA to founder of Gaadi.com, which had been acquired by Karthik, Umang. To be running Kunal Shah's angel investment portfolio. Or to be helping him with that. He had just sold Freecharge and he was figuring out what was next or doing that integration. At that time, sold to Snapdeal actually. And then to be in the founding team for Bira in Bombay.
Interesting.
And that time I didn't even know what was Bira, right? Because craft beer revolution happened. But in all of this discovery of looking at these jobs, etc., all of that, I said, is there something I can do on my own? Right? And you look at everything outside of your background before you go into what's there at home. And so Ayurveda was the last on my list. But I was personally cured of asthma using Ayurveda and my dada's formulations. And I remember a very important aspect of my childhood was with asthma as a kid, you can't play cricket and football. Too much dust on the cricket field. You can't have Coke, Limca, Fanta, Sprite. No ice cream. I had first time ice cream when I was 13 years old. And asthma had gone away with Ayurveda and I became captain of my school cricket team. So it was a big part of my life in that sense. But last thing I wanted to do. Then my dada passed. And we had this rich legacy, these formulations, these products, this brand. That story is well known. And so the macro looked like it was time to create brands in India. And the micro was my dada passed. And I made him a promise, I remember when I was in college, that I'll do something with this legacy. And at 24 and a half, I said, there's no better time now. Worst case, I do nothing, I fail. And 1 year later, I go and get a job. And I'm talented enough to go and get a job. And so I quit my job and I started Dr. Vaidya's. Dr. Vaidya's journey, a lot of people know now. It's pretty public and available. But I think the macro of my job allowed me to see that e-commerce was here to stay. We failed offline in Dr. Vaidya's. We went online. And when we went online, we offered something unique. We offered a free consultation and high quality Ayurvedic products and care to consumers at the touch of their fingertips. It was more meaningful, not in the original avatar that I perceived it to be, which is a millennial, new age, urban, elite product brand. It was a Bharat brand that really went to 16,500 pin codes across India. It reached 500 plus cities and towns. We launched 80 products. And to me, that was the most exciting and the best achievement we did at Dr. Vaidya's. It was not awards. It was not funding. We raised our first round in 2019, sold the business in 2021, made a lot of awards, won a lot of awards in the way, reached India's largest Ayurveda brand online. But reaching 65% of India's pin codes from one warehouse, at that time also multi-city warehousing was just about coming, right? 2020, 2021. So one warehouse in Bombay reaching 16,500 pin codes, fulfilling 2 million orders, getting to 5,000 orders a day. If you think about it, outside of Dr. Vaidya's as well, it's very powerful, right? Because it shows you that the traditional model of large companies with large distribution, large fleet on street, large teams are the only ones who can crack pan-India presence. And e-commerce disrupted that. And that was really the meaningful thing that happened between sort of, I want to say 13, 14, 15 to 2021. After 21, something new happened, right? And after 20 and 21, I think we faced leapfrog behavior, which you would have seen. Consumers like my dad, who didn't even have an Amazon account, set up an Amazon account. Now do 30, 40 orders a year. Don't want to buy their lenses in a shop. They want to buy it online. Comfortable doing virtual try-ons. Comfortable buying everything online and returning it if it's fashion. So that leapfrog behavior was the second leg of journey from, I would say, 21 to 24. And now we're in the third wave of e-commerce where the horizontals have been established and the verticals got established. And the first wave of D2C brands got established. Now you'll have niche D2C brands getting established because customers have become more nuanced.
And I think that's an amazing journey, Arjun, that you talked about. You touched upon various aspects of evolution of the journey. I think one is that what was commendable that in the early years of e-commerce journey, you were able to reach to the masses. The trend we are increasingly seeing that a lot of brands start focusing on the metro audience and then get to tier 2, tier 3. Now expanding to tier 2, tier 3 cities is inevitable. Do you see that trend changing wherein a lot of brands are now getting built for the quote unquote Bharat? Or do you still see the trend that brands are first built for the metros and then the second phase always gets focused on Bharat?
See, Kapil, I wrote a LinkedIn post about this last week. India is not a 1.4 billion person TAM. Even if you include tier 2 cities and a little bit of tier 3, the e-commerce janta in our country is like 130, 140, 150 million people. Right? That's the audience. So it's about 30 million households. That's not small. That's the size of Mexico. It's a large amount of population. Now, we're talking a lot about premiumization. And there is that wave of premiumization happening. But I would say still the bulk of consumption in India is happening in that middle of pyramid, 150, 200, 300 million middle class Indians. That's the real consumption engine of our economy. Yes, you can build business with the top 10 million people, 2 million households, etc., all of that. But those businesses, unless they have a very high AOV like jewelry or like watches or like wedding celebration wear, will not be thousands of crores in scale. Nothing wrong in building a 200 crore business with a 20 crore, 30 crore, 40 crore PAT or EBITDA. But those businesses need to be viewed differently. What I am seeing now is that if you are, like there are amazing case studies across fashion accessories, luggage, all of these spaces where 30%, 40%, 50% premium product is being created with better design, some aspiration, better look and feel, and a feel-good factor in the consumer, and they're able to build. Now, will Tumi be able to build a 1,000 crore sales business in India? Probably not. In the short to medium term, no. Maybe in the long term also, there's a long way to go before that happens. Will a Mokobara be able to do it? Yes. Will an assembly be able to do it? Yes. Will a National be able to do it? Yes. That possibility is there. And so, that's the real sweet spot, is mass and mass premium for really large businesses. But even premium businesses can be built. I believe that a 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 rupee handbag business, which is what a new age urban millennial or Gen Z consumer will want as they graduate to enough earning, will exist in our country, but it'll go up to 150, 200, 300 crores. And it may not go past that. But if you really want to build a 500 crore business or a 750 crore business, then you got to go at 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 rupees for the same handbag. Right? And that's the real difference in the way these businesses need to be evaluated. And investors coming into this business need to also understand this. The great part about e-commerce and consumer stories is that you have larger chance of success because you are P&L businesses. Right? And you would see it. If a founder is smart about the way they run their business, they can keep it going on forever. They can turn off the tap of marketing. They can do only what's efficient and be a break-even or slightly profitable P&L. And so the success rate is higher in number of businesses. But every business cannot be an IPO story.
Right. Understood. And now coming to the investor side of Arjun, you have invested in plethora of businesses. You've been advising a lot of D2C founders. What are some of the qualities that you've seen or maybe an advice to founders who are building great businesses? What are 2 or 3 things that you see have stood out in some of those founders who've been able to build great businesses?
See, I think today's founders are much better than we were for 3 reasons, right? The first reason is they have a lot of hindsight, legacy, stories, and learnings from those stories. So a founder today will know that if your COD RTOs are 30-40%, this business is not working. It cannot work, it will not work, and you have to change something about it. When I had that circumstance, I didn't have anyone to ask that question or know or have any source of information to discuss that. Right? And so founders today are much more well prepared. Number 2, I think data is much more easily available. Right? Today I was reading in the morning a report on the quick commerce market shares for all the new age brands in sunscreen. That data was not available. In even 17, 18, 19, 20 also the data was not available. Right? And so with that data, as well as data on marketplaces, data on what's selling, what's moving, what's scaling, and the customers also evolved to a customer that now wants better products, more products, a customer smarter. With all of this, the founders also make more educated decisions, better guesstimates, and don't just go blind like I went and said, let's try, let's figure out, let's see, tukka lagate aur dekh lete kya hota hai, right? So I think that's the second thing in terms of sort of evolution of founder. And the third thing I would say is that capital is also much more easily available. Like to raise 15 crore, for me, it took 76 investor pitches and some 15 months. That today would have happened in 3 months because I was running a decent business, had a good background, etc. All of that. So with that capital availability, founders are able to now expedite growth, right? Like you're hearing stories of brands reaching 100 crores in 2-3 years now. We never believed that was possible, right? Some brands are reaching 100 crore, like Minimalist reached 100 crore in 8 months. 100 crore was this magic unicorn benchmark that we thought we'd never reach. And today, if you see on Shark Tank, founders are just saying 100 crore like this, and they're achieving it, and they're able to achieve it. And that level of ambition, achievement, hindsight, and I will say that the first leg of horizontals, verticals, and D2C brands have done their hard yards, toil, sweat, and tears to be able to create this market. And all of them have to be commended for being able to do that.
Awesome. I think you also alluded to now brands appearing on Shark Tank. They're also much more informed. We have seen that evolution right from season 1 to now season 4. In fact, Unicommerce is powering about 50% plus of brands that have appeared on Shark Tank. So it shows that the ecosystem has evolved quite a bit. What have you seen this transformation on, like today and a lot of brands I'm sure are approaching you, they have been reaching out to us also to figure out how best to prepare for the next Shark Tank season. So when founders come to you for that advice, what are 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you give to them?
Firstly, I think that like for every founder, it's a no-brainer. If you can get on that visibility platform, do it. I just posted or talked about this a couple of days ago that ATL visibility for early stage startups is very hard. To take a billboard or a TV slot or a radio slot or a newspaper slot when you don't see the ROI directly and you're running low on cash is very, very difficult. And so Shark Tank seems to be that one opportunity for brands to get ATL, which is free. I have estimated the value of every Shark Tank episode, and let's take this season aside because it didn't go on TV. Otherwise, 15 crores worth of visibility that you get for free. Even a Series A funded startup, 15 crores of spend on marketing is not easy to do or easy to get, right? So I think all companies that have the opportunity to do it should do it. I will say this season I was most impressed with the quality of startups because I had met 50% of them before they went on the tank. And if a VC has met 50% of them, their quality of shortlisting is outstanding. And they're improving year on year in terms of quality. Now, what does a founder need to do to prepare for Shark Tank? I think the first thing is prepare for the audition. Be ready to be able to create a very, very compelling pitch of your business in 5 minutes. That is a skill, to be able to pitch it with a story, with a rhyme, with a dance, with some sort of demonstration, some fun element, etc. in that 5-minute period, right? So prepare a very, very strong pitch. Number 2, really preempt the questions. The ones who have not done well on the tank are the ones who got defensive, aggressive on the tank. But it's a mechanism that comes on to a founder. If you criticize my business, the first thing I do is feel terrible, right? Like I played squash on Saturday and my dad came to watch me play after a really long time and he was criticizing my game. I went straight into defense mode. No. I did this, I did it well, I did it fine, right? And as a founder, it is totally normal to be able to do that, right? Now in that situation, if you have preempted the questions, figured out your answers, accepted that there may be some shortcomings in the business and come up with solutions, that you'll be be perceived much better with the sharks and it'll come much better on TV as well for you as well, right? So I think that's the second thing. The third thing is that be very, very prepared on who you want to target on the tank as well. If you do already say, I want to work with you because of XYZ reason, etc., it really helps build that connect with the shark. The last two aspects are the more operational aspects, which is, of course, relevant to where you guys come in as well. Number one would be very smart about planning inventory. The worst thing you can do is stock out. Be smart about planning inventory on a few fronts. One, prepare your suppliers, contract manufacturers, or your factory in advance that this is coming. Keep 3 to 4 months of additional stock. Worst case, you have additional stock, which will sell over a period of time, right? 3 to 4 additional months. But keep that 3 to 4 months of additional stock. And most important is ensure that well before your episode is aired, you stock up all your channels. So your D2C warehouses, your quick commerce warehouses, your Amazon, if you're a personal care brand, your Nykaa, if you're a brand that sells more to tier 2 audiences, a Flipkart or a Snapdeal, ensure all your channels are well stocked before the episode airs. Not just your D2C website, because there are some customers who want to pick it up on Instamart. And you have to be available there, right? So that's the fourth step. And the fifth step, I would say, is that have a very strong marketing plan. See, the amazing thing you get in Shark Tank is that bump. You grow 4x, 5x from the previous month for the month you air. The best companies, like the Perforas of the world, were able to, through sustained planned marketing, make that bump their new norm. So let's say, for example, Sephora was doing 75 lakhs a month before they went on the tank. They did 4 crores the month they went on the tank. For the next 6 months, they figured out enough capital and marketing to be able to sustain at 3.5 to 4 crores a month. That is a new normal for you, a new baseline for you as a brand. And that's the best way to use this visibility. I'll give you an example of Go Zero, right? They were doing 2.5 crore a month before they went on the tank. The month they went on the tank, they did 5 crore, right? So double the revenue. And today the summer's coming and they'll do hopefully 10 crores plus. And that will set some new benchmark for the business, which is rare to establish in normal parlance and normal course of life for a brand.
Great. You gave a great example of Go Zero, which is built a lot on the quick commerce platform. That's a new trend that we're seeing. A lot of brands are now vying for the space of quick commerce. Again, for brands who want to be successful in quick commerce, it's a very different game. It's a new trend that's coming up. Not many brands have been able to do that well, and some have not been able to gain entry. Again, if like founders who are working with you or who you have advised, what are the 1 or 2 advice that you've given to them for quick commerce platform to be able to scale well on the quick commerce platforms?
See, I think the first thing and the hardest thing about quick commerce is listing. And founders are complaining a lot about not being able to list, but I sympathize with the quick commerce platform because a dark store can stock only so many 1,500, 2,000 SKUs. They were stocking only 600-700 earlier now. They've increased their size because the business has grown significantly. But after that, what can you do? You can't do anything, right? You can't scale it further, etc. All of that. So I think you have to have enough of a compelling story to be able to list your product on this platform and get them interested. It could be some Shark Tank visibility, it could be some funding, it could be searches. See, they track all the searches on the platform. And if there are 300 searches for a product that's not fulfilled, they will come to you and say, I want your product, right? So you have to be good enough or interesting enough for them to want to list you, else you get listed on those terrible terms, which is a large listing fee, a large marketing budget, a high margin, etc., which will mean you lose money per order, which is not relevant, right? So getting yourself listed is crucial. Once you're listed, the biggest hack that the smartest brands are using is figuring out where they are stocking out, when they are stocking out, and ensuring that through the DCs, that stock is replenished. For me, I have a Epigamia zero sugar strawberry yogurt 90% of the days of the year. There is, and that's not their highest selling SKU or something like that, right? So there is a chance that I don't see it on any of the quick commerce platforms for 24 hours. But when I do that search, the next day without fail, it's available on at least one or two of the quick commerce platforms. Which means Epigami has something in the back end that they are working on to understand that this search was made and it yielded no result and this customer wants the product and they get the product restocked. I'm not saying the quick commerce platforms are doing nothing. Of course, they are also seeing the API hits when there is non-fulfillment due to out of stock situation. But a huge hack for founders is to ensure stocked up at the right time on the platforms. The third thing is that you cut through the clutter. You have to figure out smart marketing, smart bundling, smart offers, smart coupons, smart sampling on these platforms. I think sampling is a very, very underrated but strong form of marketing for D2C brands. Two things I want to talk about that could work for D2C brands. And it's not just a quick commerce channel, but a hack for D2C brands that very few founders use. Sampling and money back guarantees. Sampling is something I used very, very effectively in our first ever launch in Dr. Vaidya is a product called Live It Up. It was an ayurvedic hangover cure, but had instant action. That means you had it before you drank and you woke up fresh in the morning. I was very confident of the quality of my product. And so the first year, all I did was every bar, music festival, event, concert, I gave out this product for free. I gave out 2 lakh packets in Mumbai for free in the first year. But I knew the efficacy of my product. I knew it would work. And so I knew that people would get hooked if they use it free for on time. Now, I didn't have enough brand presence to generate that trial very easily. But with this activity, see, the cogs is all you're bearing, right? And the effort of being able to sample the product. But that is the best form of marketing if you trust the efficacy of a product. Similarly, right? Money back guarantee. Now, founders may be fundamentally scared of money back guarantee because they're like, oh my God, the customer will give it back. I'll get 90% of my product back, etc. All of that. No, returning a product on e-commerce is an involved experience. It's become simpler, but it's an involved experience. There are very few cases other than fashion where I return often. Because I have to go through the headache, I have to fill this form, then they'll send someone, then I have to be there to return the product, etc. All of that, right? This shirt I'm wearing, by the way, I returned because the sizing was wrong and I got the right size. But if you ask me if I ordered a face wash and it was okay, I'm not going to return it unless it create a rash or something on it. So if you are confident about your product working, when does a user look for a money back guarantee, etc., when they're on the fence of whether to buy or not? And if you're confident the product will do well for the user, as you're confident in the sampling use case as well, money back guarantee is a very powerful hack for D2C founders. Especially in the health and wellness and beauty personal care space.
Great. Now coming back to your journey, Arjun, you exited Dr. Vaidya's online business to RPS Group in 2021. What was that journey like? What made you decide that this was the right step? And consequence of that for a founder now, there are multiple options available. What is the best path for a founder to scale it up independently, to take an exit? There are many large FMCG groups that are acquiring D2C brands. That's a new trend that we're seeing. Or an IPO as an option that's coming up now for a few brands. Mama set an example there.
Yeah. There are many pathways for D2C brands. I think we are excited as an ecosystem that there are outcomes coming for founders, right? And the outcomes could be a strategic acquisition. The outcomes could be a strategic investment. The outcome could be a secondary sale for the founder that they're getting some liquidity. The outcome could be an IPO, right? Each of these outcomes are amazing and I celebrate each and every one of these outcomes. I make it a point to message any founder that has an outcome because 2 things. 1, it inspires hundreds of thousands of D2C founders. And 2, I know that a percentage of that capital is coming back into our ecosystem. And that is amazing, right? We were the first set of acquisitions in D2C that happened. Us, Beardo, Momsco. First 3 acquisitions that happened in D2C. Now you're seeing a lot more. Why are you seeing a lot more of these acquisitions? Because these legacy incumbents have realized that while they have a lot going for them, engaging with this new age customer in an agile, nimble fashion that D2C brands are able to do, they may not be able to do it as well. And HUL has launched 10 D2C brands. Acne Squad is one of them. But that DNA of product iteration, that DNA of customer centricity, that DNA of social media virality does not exist in large organizations. And building a team inside a large structured team inside a team is not easy. And so given all of this, they are saying we are interested in acquiring these D2C businesses. Now, What do they want to acquire? They want to acquire a business with some amount of sales. They're not acquiring a business doing 3 crore ARR, 4 crore ARR. It has to be $10 million plus in sales. So I would say anything above 70, 80 crores becomes interesting. These legacy players run on a good P&L. And so they want to see a profitable business or a very nearly profitable business with a clear path to profitability in the short to medium term. They want to see something they can't do. A product moat, a brand moat, a social media moat, a convenience moat, a consumer love moat, something they want to see that they're not able to do. And so establishing this moat is very crucial, because a brand that's everything for everyone and just does exciting categories or tactical categories may be easily replicable. But something that does something unique at a smaller scale may hold more value. And the last thing I would say is they want to see a founder that they can work with for the transition period.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who lead the organization the right way and lead them in the right way. I think these 4 things help with the acquisitions. We will see many, many more.
Mm-hmm.
ITC has been active at acquisitions. Marico has been active. Unilever has been active. We'll see L'Oreal and Reckitt getting active. We'll of course see Imami has been active. Tata Consumer has been active. So you will see lots more acquisitions over the next decade. And I'm very bullish about that and very excited about that. IPO is tough.
Mm-hmm.
IPO is tough in consumer because our space is very well known to the listed investors. And so real scale has to be there. $100 million plus in scale with a 50 crore plus of PAT is what is possible, or what makes it possible for a D2C brand or consumer brand to list. Before that, it'll be hard. There are, of course, other options like SME, IPO, etc. I don't know enough about that to say. But there's lots more venture capital and private equity interest coming, because we are seeing the acquisitions, we are seeing the IPOs. Other than Honasa, we've seen, of course, Nykaa IPO, we've seen Zomato IPO, we've seen FirstCry IPO. They may not be direct D2C brands, but they're all part of the startup ecosystem. And so I would like to see Honasa type or Mama type standalone brands IPO more and more. And the next 5 years should create some outcomes for us.
We are also seeing that on the traditional brands like Go Colors, Campus, etc. also went IPO. Some of these are customers. So we've had a ringside view of that. But you're right, we are not seeing as much outcomes on the IPO side as much as we are seeing on the strategic acquisition
and secondary,
strategic or secondary sales. But do you see that changing, let's say, as the scale starts to increase?
Yeah, I think scale will increase. Ambition of founders also increases. I can tell you with a hand on my heart confession that I never ever even fathomed or believed Dr. Vaidya's could IPO, because I just didn't have that belief only. I was like, 100 crore ka business bana dunga, main khush rahunga, because that is so far away. Today's founder saying IPO kar lunga main. I'll push for it. I'll get to 1,000 crore sales. I'll do it. That renewed level of confidence, or that new level of confidence, is something that really excites me as an investor, an ecosystem person, an evangelist for D2C.
Makes sense. I think one of the things that you mentioned in the beginning, that there was this newfound respect for India-made products by Indian consumers. I am now seeing even the global consumers also like giving a lot more respect to the Indian brands. Although there have not been many success stories, but there have been few like T-Box and few others who've been able to, or Vadam Teas, they have been able to.
Yeah, we have Vadam, we have Skill Matrix, we have Ayurveda Experience, we have California Design Den. Yeah. We'll see many more.
So what is the, again, the success mantra there? You've seen few success stories, not many. What has worked for these brands?
I think it's nobody's fault that there have been few success stories. Firstly, in tea, yoga, Ayurveda and spices, I believe India will consistently create global brands, because those are the things we're known for. What is interesting to me is now Skillmatics has gone and built in a category where we're not necessarily known to be the leaders,
True.
right? And so it's signaling one important thing in India. And that important thing in India is that geopolitically and economically as well, India is a force to reckon in. Brand India is cool. And so a customer sitting in the US, in Buenos Aires, in London, or in Paris may actually want to buy an Indian Kolhapuri chappal because they associate something cool with that brand. Brand India was never cool when I was growing up. But today, anything Indian is considered unique. We were considered mystical, mystery land, land of the gods. No, now people are like, anything made in India is quality, it's power. And so I think like I said, the next decade will have a lot of acquisitions. The next decade will have lots of Indian brands go global. Some will succeed, some will fail. That market is bigger but harder to win in. But you will see more and more winners. And more people are thinking about it as well.
Arjun, you mentioned earlier on about how technology plays a very important role for a brand, and now inventory stocking, inventory planning is extremely important, especially when they're, let's say, appearing on Shark Tank or there is a marketing visibility. But I have seen this change where now early stage founders are also understanding the importance of technology and they're investing behind in technology. What are one or two trends you are seeing particularly now? As you said, the founders are a lot more informed. Are you seeing any particular change on that aspect in the community?
I wish I was building a brand today because this entire plug and play infrastructure is being created. You don't have to run your own warehouse. You don't have to run your own inventory management system. You don't have to use those Excels. You don't have to create your own chatbot. You don't have to create your own search product for your website. You don't have to create your own top of funnel to find those influencers. There are products that help you find the influencers. And so a lot of this plug and play infrastructure of payments, of logistics, of order management systems, of warehousing systems, of warehouse management systems have been created over the last 5-7 years that make the life of a D2C founder much easier. You now focus on your core, which is sales, marketing, production, and product quality. And leave the rest to a slew of high quality products that talk to each other now as well, right? Like initially, they were very difficult to get API integrations. Now everyone's integrated the API. And so every product can talk to each other. Now it's like getting like a Zapier-like setup where you get all these products to talk to each other and you focus on your core. I think technology will play a very, very important role in the back end of D2C brands. In the operations, the logistics, in the warehousing, in the fulfillment. In the front end, I still think it's a lot of creativity and a lot of big picture thinking and a lot of strategy. But in the back end of e-commerce, technology will play more and more role, like AI-based demand forecasting, AI-based supply chain planning. All of these things will now be big in the ecosystem. And I guess a lot of products are available to help founders use it.
And are you seeing AI being pervasive now in the D2C ecosystem? You're seeing founders being comfortable and embracing this new way of AI?
Firstly, D2C founders are not tech guys. Fundamentally, right? We are product people. I'm seeing it being used in logistics planning, procurement planning, inventory planning, and content.
Okay.
Content as well as marketing automation. I think these few use cases are being adopted very heavily, which makes sense also.
Yeah.
I think overdoing the AI also is not relevant, right? Like, especially for D2C where it is a products business with a real physical product, etc. All of that. Overdoing the AI may not make sense. Like creating a logo, ideas can come from AI, but I've seen eventually you've got to have some designer, someone do it, etc. All of that. Mass replication of creatives, very powerful with AI. So I think there are use cases for sure, but the entirety of D2C cannot be done using AI.
And you have been a big believer of the D2C ecosystem. You talk very passionately about the entire ecosystem. For a brand founder which is scaling from, let's say, 10 crores to 100 crores or now 1,000 crores, what are those? What is the mindset shift that you see when the founders are on these journeys?
I think it's a village, town, and city, right? And I would say that journey is 1, 10, and 100, not 10, 100, and 1,000. Because 100 upwards, it's a place that not many have been. Let's say 200, 300, 500. That is now serious scale where you have to do individualistic scaling. At 1 crore, you are a village. Every small team, one small office, everybody's yelling and can speak to each other. At that time, you just need hustlers, generalists who just get it going, get your revenue going. At the 10 crore a year mark, you are then established some sort of product market fit. You need a lot of specialists in R&D, in SEO, in performance marketing, in marketplace management, in customer service, in brand building, influencer marketing. So that's when the specification or the niches or the cutting up of the organization starts, but it's still very founder driven. And stage 3 after about 100 crore is where this has become a business now. The founder may be the CEO or is the CEO or COO of the business, but the mission is much larger than one person's mission and vision. And so that can be the guiding force, but eventually more and more senior professionals need to come to help the company go for the next set of its milestones, goals, scale.
Understood. You also talked about the real time for India D2C is 130, 140 million users. And now we have a lot of brand launches that are coming. It's become very competitive. But because India is large, even 130, 140 million is large, even niches can be large enough. Again, I understand each journey will be very different, but how does one identify? Are you still bullish that there are enough niches available where large brands can be built?
So, Mamaearth was the first wave of beauty personal care brands, right? They built a generalized brand. They reached a lot of scale. Inside Honasa, now there's 5-6 brands launched that are more specific.
True.
Today, I may not be able to invest in a broad-based personal care brand that does a bit of everything. That was the right time in 2017-18 to do it. But I'm just going to make, and I may make an investment in a kid's personal care business. I may make an investment in a senior's personal care business. I may make an investment in a hair colors business. So the way to invest now is different from the way to invest in the past. And you are looking for smaller nuances that cater to a tribe, not the entire country.
Understood. And we are seeing this wave of founders building their own personal brand. Do you think that helps the D2C brand or the business? And for someone who's not very proficient or very comfortable with building a brand, what are the alternative ways for this?
See, Instagram is hard to build a brand. It takes a lot of effort. You have to be comfortable speaking like this in front of the camera. But LinkedIn is a no-brainer. It helps you with business. My buyer, the CEO of RPSG Group's FMCG business, Suhail Sameer, who now runs his own fund, reached out to me through a cold DM on LinkedIn. If I wasn't there, how would he reach out to me? Would you go through the effort of finding a common friend if you would find one? And I also found Whirl Invest and eventually started with V3 through a cold LinkedIn message. So LinkedIn is non-negotiable. It's text every day. We are founders. We write well anyways. We write emails and sell our story very well. So writing LinkedIn content 3-4 times a week is not impossible to do. It's also very important because you're out there. If a prospective hire has seen your post before on LinkedIn, they are much more likely to join. If a prospective investor has seen you talk about your thesis on LinkedIn, they have some context into what kind of person you are. I think LinkedIn is a non-negotiable for founders. All founders should be active on LinkedIn. Even if you don't write posts, worst case, at least reply to the DMs.
Fair. Just to wrap it up, Arjun, one final word of advice to any D2C founder who's building a brand today.
Yeah, I think you're already better off than I was. And you're already better off than I was because the market has expanded. The customers are there. We are the center of the world in India. And so my advice would be the best way to start is to start. And if you've started, keep going and keep scaling. Because there's a lot of philosophizing, a lot of thought, a lot of structure, a lot that we build up as demons in our mind. But eventually, only once a customer takes out money from their wallet and pays for your product, are you able to, outside of the family and friends and sampling activity, are you able to ascertain that there is real interest for your product or not?
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Arjun, for your
My
time.
pleasure, Kapil. Thank you so much for having me.